Welcome in. This is your odds checker betting preview for this week's Fortinet Championship. I'm Rick Gehman. That right there, Geoff Fienberg. And Jeff, 1 week off, 1 week before the new season, and we are right back at it, basically 48 straight weeks.
Yeah, I always love golf. The fact that we're right back at it doesn't bother me one bit, but I can never wrap my head around the fact that this is the start of the season. Like, to me, the season starts in January, essentially at the Tournament of Champions. Because that's almost when like people start doing fantasy or one and dones, and this is just some extra. I don't know. This is like after dessert, like tea or something. I don't even know what this is, but it's golf and it's on, and Sundays are busy.
It's golf. It's basically 25% of the season or so, and the points and the money still hit the bank account in the same way. I think the big storyline here, Jeff, is the field. Not only do we get finally the influx of all the Korn Ferry Tour guys, a year later than normal because nobody graduated last year. Finally, they get to come up onto the big circuit, so we have to figure out where they fit amongst our regular PGA Tour professionals. And then, oh, by the way, the number one player in the world, Jon Rahm, has said, yeah, okay, I'll play this event. I'll come to Napa for some wine and some golf, and has really kind of thrown a wrench into this betting board.
Normally, I love betting this event, and it's been very profitable for people, Rick. And as much as we can, take shots at fields or swing season, it's actually proven that there's some great betting tickets out there if you can mine them. 150 to 1, 200 to 1 winners here in recent memory. And it's not fair that Jon Rahm showed up. Silverado's a golf course that I enjoy betting because bombers can have great success here, but we've seen your Ryan Moores and your Brent Snedekers, have fantastic weeks here. You see the road for all different types of golfers, which makes it a fun tournament to bet. Rahm showing up throws a huge wrench into this. I honestly, this is obviously a bit of hyperbole, lots of hyperbole. This is as egregious as Justin Thomas showing up to the father-son challenge and taking on like VJ's kid and O'Mara's kid and young kid Charlie Woods. Like, it's almost not fair.
Yeah, he wants to smack around the 11-year-olds and take his trophy home. Well, Jon Rahm, depending on where you're looking, as short as plus 350 on the odds checker grid, that's DraftKings, and as long as plus 460, that's at FanDuel. And there is, as you can imagine, Jeff, a pretty sizable gap down to Webb Simpson at 16 to 1. What could we possibly do with Jon Rahm? This is implying he's going to win a full field event with a cut about 20% of the time or so. Let's just start with the man at the top.
I can't bet it. If he wins, he gets me. My exposure is probably going to be down from where we were, at least in the FedEx Cup playoffs. He scares me, scares everybody. The fact that he only has one win or hasn't won since the US Open is mind-boggling, because every time it's Sunday, he is there. His number on Sunday morning is exponentially shorter than the short number it starts at. And for whatever reason, he hasn't been able to kick the door down. You feel like whoever he'd be up against this week, he certainly would have no problems doing it. All I can say is when we make our bets this week, Rick, I hope this was just his wife, Kelly's, it's been a pandemic, saying, honey, I want to go to wine country. It's been a long year. Let's go have some fun. And she picked this one. And they're doing red wine siestas. I don't know, on a little R&R, literally. That's the only chance we have. I'm not betting Rahm though. It's a hard pass. I can't bet that.
Neither can I. It's a full field event. It's a pretty bonkers number, especially for an event where we're getting a bunch of new guys. We have some guys who we haven't seen play in a month. We don't know what they've been up to. This is similar to like week 1 in the NFL. It's kind of your chaos week for me. There's just so many different things that it would be tough for me to pull the trigger on Jon Rahm at even plus 460, which is by far the best number available at FanDuel. So the next tier, it's Webb Simpson, it's Hideki Matsuyama, it's Kevin Na, it's Will Zalatoris. They're all anywhere between 16 and 28 to 1. Zalatoris recently crowned our PGA Tour Rookie of the Year from last season. Kevin Na on an absolute heater. Is there anything in this area that will end up on your final ticket?
I have not made any bets here. Some of them are tempting, but I think I'm skipping this range entirely. I could make a case that when you put the field into perspective, that some of these lines are fair. I think the course does suit Webb Simpson. Kevin Na has been absolutely unconscious, and maybe in sort of what we saw Billy Horschel do in Europe last week, Rick, like Webb or Na, just sort of remind everybody they feel like they've been snubbed from the Ryder Cup. But this whole range is just a pass. It's just a pass for me.
Probably for me as well. I'm not a big Kevin Na guy, but it's a very short par 72. You end up hitting a lot of wedges into this thing. Being in the fairway is much better than necessarily being long. He gets the hot putter from time to time. I probably won't pull the trigger on it, but there is something enticing about Kevin Na, and he actually wins golf tournaments, Geoff.
Yeah, and here's the part about it, because I've already had this discussion today. What odd would make you run to bet Kevin Na? Like if you feel 25 doesn't feel short. Like if it was 33, you'd be thrilled, right? 34.
Yeah.
So maybe you shouldn't allow yourself to be talked out of something this week, and maybe just swallow the few points that you're missing. 25 is the best number on odds checker grid, and you've made a great case. It's an absolute course fit. Great course history. And despite the fact he's won lots, you can make a case his form is as good as any time he's ever won in his life.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. BetMGM hanging that plus 2,500. So then we continue down the board. Cameron Tringale, Cameron Champ, he's won this event before. HV3, Charlie Hoffman's 50 to 1. Is this a range that we can find somebody?
Yeah, so I have made a wager on Charlie Hoffman today, Rick, at 50 to 1. The California guy, birdie party, resort course, lots of check marks for me and Charlie Hoffman. We saw some immaculate ball striking form from him as the season wound down in the events that he played. He's a guy, if you're making a bet this week, and that's what makes some of these Korn Ferry guys intriguing, is you've got to have this inherent belief that the guy, I'm almost amazed that we haven't seen more 20 under or lower winners here, but I'm fully expecting you need to go resort course 20 under, 22 under to win this thing. And Charlie has that in him, and I believe in Charlie.
I also love to see the gap, right? DraftKings has him at 35 to 1. BetMGM has him at 50 to 1, which is always nice to see on the odds checker grid. And when we see kind of gaps like that, we've seen those guys really start to play well. DraftKings obviously has a much better sentiment on Charlie Hoffman than other books do. I kind of feel similarly about Sebastian Munoz. Doesn't win as much, but like the ability to get hot, the ability to roll the rock. When he's on, he can fire at every single pin, and I do think you're going to need to be able to go very, very low here, Geoff, as well. Outside of the 50s, Siwoo Kim is here. We start to get into Ches Reavie, who, if you're playing on a wedge, resort style course, that might be in his game. And then you start to get a couple of these Korn Ferry graduates, Steven Yeager, Mito Pereira. Is there anything here that's moving the needle for you?
Yeah, Ches Reavie's very attractive to me. He's a guy that I think I bet a bit in some of those lesser events, maybe out of the Open Championship. I liked what I saw. There is that bomb and gouge approach that works well here. It's you don't fear missing the fairway. And then there's that just Ches Reavie, you are hoping to attack pins and be nonstop opportunities through the week. I like Ches Reavie quite a bit this week. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I have on Hoffman, but my eyes are going to Reeve.
Reeve is second on tour, at least was last year, in driving accuracy. There is an element to the North Course that angles and wedges. Angles and wedges is a really good combination to have. That's the combination that Ches Reeve has. If you're new to the Korn Ferry, guys, Mito Pereira won 3 times on the Korn Ferry Tour last season, so he got promoted to the PGA Tour midway through the summer. He was great in his handful of PGA Tour starts. And then Steven Jaeger is he's basically Webb Simpson light, which is he's the Korn Ferry's version of Webb Simpson. Doesn't hit it far. He's accurate off the tee, and he's much better from fairway through green. When we start getting down outside of the 75s to 1s, we're encountering some triple-digit numbers. Roger Sloan, the Canadian, is here. Phil Mickelson's hanging an 85 to 1. Harry Higgs, triple digits. Is there an enticement for you here?
Yeah, sort of at the back of the pack, especially, making my first bet at 50 to 1 will allow me to throw some of these grenades, and I'll probably supplement them with each ways because I'm that afraid of Jon Rahm, and I'm never one to just toss each ways, but they ruin this great Rahm's presence just makes me so fearful that, even when you get a guy deep on Sunday, and if he's lucky enough to be there versus Rahm, there's still no hedge opportunity because Rahm is such a big favorite, Rick. But Pat Perez, north of 75 in front of 100, is a guy, he can play that resort course style golf. He misses a lot of cuts, but almost in that vein of Munoz. Outright win potential. You're expecting, the floor can be there, but you're betting on the ceiling. When you make an outright bet, you're betting on the ceiling. And I think Pat Perez's ceiling can work very well at Silverado.
95 to 1 at FanDuel for Pat Perez. Okay, now we start to go down into the real long shots here. Brendan Steele's won this event twice. Kirat Afi-Barnrat in the midst of a pretty good stretch of golf, played well at the BMW PGA Championship on the European Tour last week. He is 110 to 1. There are a lot of new names, a lot of old names like Patton Kizzire at 140 to 1, Hank Lee Biota at 150. I never do this, Geoff, but I'm firing a lot of these little darts. I just don't love the top of the board. I'm going to be picking out a handful of these long shots and enjoying my hopefully Sunday sweat somewhere.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That is sort of where my head is at. There are a few guys over 100 to 1 that certainly have my attention. I have bet on Tyler Pendrith, a Canadian. He hits it a long way. There are a lot of us excited about his prospects this week, Rick. Hudson Swafford, a guy you were doing the hard sell on late in the year. How do we turn away from Swaff Daddy right now at this big number? He is peppering greens. He's creating opportunities. It's a big number. It's a big opportunity. I'm here for Swafford in sort of trying to find poor man's Cameron Champ. I draw my attention to Luke List. I'm hoping for the spike putting week, but I'm Luke List. He's 13th on tour in driving distance, and he had some incredible finishes for Luke in those lower tier events. Was it the Barbasol, the John Deere? We got to the weekend. Well, let's just get to the weekend and do a little better. What, a 4th place, a 6th place? I'm looking to build on that for Luke List this week at a course that I believe can suit him perfectly.
151 at both DraftKings and FanDuel for Luke List. Yes, Hudson Swafford will eventually make my card as well because of he played great down the stretch. His final 3 events, 2 of them were playoff events. Now, Geoff, before we get out of here, how are you going to approach this? I don't think we're supposed to call it the swing season anymore. I think we're supposed to call it the fall portion of the schedule. I forget what the tour wants us to call it, but is this a time of year where you dial back the exposure? Are you tending to fire on more longer shots? What can we expect from you for the next 10 weeks or so?
Yeah, I mean, every event, will have its. I don't want to just commit to anything in terms of sorry. There's opportunities to be had. Big winners can be had in the swing season. Huge numbers. We see it every year. So even though we'll make the jokes about the field and it lacks star power and maybe it's not a great TV event, there's a betting ticket to cash. There's a winning ticket to cash. As long as Jon Rahm stays away, right? There's opportunity. So if I see opportunity, I'll strike. But yeah, I don't know. My exposure is going to be closer to John Deere than a WGC, like regularly, right? Like that 3M Open sort of thing. But once in a while, we're going to see a few big boys step up, show up in these things, and maybe I'll lay the wood. But for this one, I'm with you, Rick. I'm going to just pepper these 100-to-1 areas and, probably even play them on each ways, which is something I really don't do often. And see, West Coast golf, it'll be a great finish to cap off Sunday.
Absolutely will. Follow Geoff on Twitter at Fienberg17. You can follow me at Rick Run Good. This has been your odds checker betting preview for this week's Fortinet Championship, and we'll catch you next week.